Welcome to Creating Connection within Health and Wellness
with your host, Demi
and Kirsty,
where we connect and share our perspectives and experiences within the health and wellness industry.
Hi guys, and welcome to episode 10 with Kirsty and the beautiful Demi. Today, we are so excited to be back with an awesome topic for this episode. We're actually going to be discussing how to make moves in any career. And this was requested by one of our listeners. So we thought we'd bring to you, our knowledge and our insight through our life experiences on how we've made moves in whatever career or sector that we're in, and also moving into becoming a business owner. So this sort of ties into, I suppose, following on from our original episode of Following Your Passion. But you can always go back and listen to that if you haven't listened to that one just yet. But in terms of this today, we're going to get into the little nitty-gritty about how to actually make those progressions and how to make moves no matter what career that you're in. Because as we know, we've got listeners from all different sectors, and it's important to acknowledge that and also be able to give you some skills to be able to create the life that you enjoy. So we're going to start off today with discussing some real life learnings and teachings about how we've made those moves. And we thought we'd get started first with discussing the different roles that we've each had. So within this, we're going to discuss, the roles that we've had and those progressions. So we've touched on this lightly in a previous episode, but in terms of where did we go from when we started to how far did we progress before we shifted? So within this, if you'd like to get started, Demi, you're more than welcome to start and discuss your roles, and I'll go through mine.
Yeah. And I absolutely love this topic. And I also love that this question came from a listener, because it does mean that we're actually, reaching an audience that's not just in the fitness industry, which is really, really cool, because we haven't always been in the fitness industry. So we have had we've both had very decorated resumes, and I think it's something that we actually connected on originally when we first met. We were like, yeah, wow, did that too. And so this topic is currently actually very close to my heart. I can't reveal much about it yet for those listeners, because when this comes out, it won't be public knowledge. But making career moves is not always easy. So this is something that I can't wait to dive into today. But firstly, starting off a little bit about my previous employment. Basically, obviously, as I sort of grew up, got to after high school, was very much hospitality and retail based, your typical first job type stuff. But upon reflection, when I was sort of writing a little bit of notes for this podcast, I realized that in every single role that I took, even at a young age, I was always gravitating towards team leader / floor manager type roles. Even at a young age, the first sort of team leader, floor manager position that I got was in a cafe. And it was something where, I pretty much run the cafe from Thursday night through to Sunday. So definitely always taking that little bit of extra sort of step to kind of get really stuck into that role and progress within whatever role I was taking. So that's something that I was able to identify about myself. And I think these are really important things in terms of what characteristics do you have that can help you progress within your career. So I found a passion for travel really, really early on. I did seasons working down in Denmark, Western Australia. So we'll have some listeners that are over in Queensland where you are, Kirsty, and some that are in WA where I am. So if you don't know where they are, it's probably not really that relevant. But basically, I've worked everywhere from the bottom of WA right up through to the top of WA to Broome. So you've got the most southernest point and also the most northern point in Western Australia. And I've also done work over in the Whitsundays, so in Queensland, and travelled and then done parts in Asia and all that sort of stuff. Found a passion for travel. The only thing is that when you travel, you need money to do that. So I was always working whilst I was travelling, mainly around Australia. But then when I came back home, I found a high-paying job in FIFO. And again, that was something where I worked very quickly into a team leadership role. And at that time, basically, I was just working in the kitchen. And then that actually allowed me to save enough money, because I found, whilst I was working FIFO, I found a passion for fitness. So saved enough money to go and put myself through my courses, got my Cert 3, got my Cert 4. and then ended up getting into the work space in the health and fitness industry, and that has slowly progressed over time. I've moved through to places like group fitness coaching, cruise ships, being a fitness director on a cruise ship for a year, coming home, going back to FIFO, also again moving up into team leadership roles within the health and fitness space in FIFO, and then starting my own business or working for someone else and then progressively starting my own business. So as you can see, there's a lot of different decisions that have led me to where I am. And there might be some people listening to this that have basically just kind of come out of high school or gotten into the workforce and not really changed much about their roles, and pretty much always done very similar jobs for maybe like 5, 10, 15 years. And then now you're kind of like, well, I think I might want to make a change. But there also might be some listeners listening to this, like feeling the same way and going, yeah, I've changed so many times and I still can't really figure out what it is that I want. I'm here to tell you that that's totally okay. Like, I'm speaking to you right now saying that I'm not even 100% clear on what I want. And that can sometimes make making career moves even harder, right? So that's a little bit about my employment history. Yeah, and like sort of the progressions that I've made and like many different moves over the years. So yeah, that's me. How about you, Kirsty?
Yeah, I'm very similar. Like we've discussed before in previous podcasts, we have beautiful decorated resumes, and which, used to be something that I used to look at as a hindrance because of what people used to say. But I feel like in this day and age, it's such an awesome variety to have a diverse range of skills, in my personal opinion. And, within these, speaking in terms of like progressing through the ranks, very similar to yourself, Demi, where, throughout whatever job it might have been, I started working at 13 years old. That's a long time ago now. And, within every single job, I always have this drive to want more, right? Essentially, I want to progress. I want to refine my craft and get better at the things that I'm doing. And that's essentially the drive that I have within. And that started back in my Macca's days, moving through the ranks there, then moving into bar management there. So I started off as a bartender, moving into bar supervisor, went from, in other roles, whatever it was, like, for example, like business development manager to sales account manager to key accounts, like continuously always progressing and have that hunger and that drive for more. And, that led into, working within the gym and working in progressions there. But then also, like yourself, that's where we became business owners. And, within this, it sort of gets to that point where it's like, awesome, that's that next step. How can we grow and progress through our businesses too? And, for myself, progressions when you're moving through the ranks, it's going to look different. And then also when you start to open your own business and have your own, create your own career of what you essentially want in life, that progression is going to look a little bit different because you essentially create that direction. So for myself, within this, I started off as a personal trainer, then became a nutritionist. So I have those certifications, and then doing often little roles, little things here and there. And currently I'm in training now, following my passion in terms of these things, to be a Wim Hof method instructor, which I'll be certified next year, which is very exciting. And then continuously progressing in different ways. That's the coolest thing is like, at the end of the day, we get to create whatever we want. And we're actually going to be discussing today in terms of these things around how to actually make those moves, right? Because like you're discussing before, there is fear in everything we do, but how do we lean into that fear just enough to be able to make that next step? And we're actually going to discuss that today, which I'm super excited for, because we've made incredible moves, both of us, in both of our lives. So it's super exciting to share this too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually just I got super excited and got goosebumps when you were talking about, doing those things that are following your passion. And one thing that I definitely want to highlight here, before we get into like the nitty gritty and our main points is, and it's something that I've realized very recently, is that you can never turn over too many stones. So when I talk about turning over stones, I mean, you might see an opportunity present itself or something that you might want to go after. You're only going to know if you turn over the stone, see what's underneath, right? Check it out, see if you like it. And if it turns out to be not the right decision for you, then that's okay. You turned over the stone. You're never going to know, and I kind of envision this as like a fork in the road, right? So you might come to a fork in the road and you're like, do I go left? Do I go right with my career? You can go left, but at that point in time, you're never going to know what was right. You're never going to know what was down that right path. Because even if you go left and you go, shit, that wasn't the right decision, I'm not happy here, I want to change, you can still go back to that intersection and go right, but you're not going to see the exact same thing because you've got the experience of going left first, right? So it's not going to be the same. It's never going to be the same. So when we make these decisions in our business, I think it's really important to also not get too attached to, you know, the outcome of whatever sort of other opportunity you may or may not have sort of taken on. And recently, I can speak from experience, I've just turned over a really big stone in my career and gone, maybe that wasn't the right stone to turn over. And it's like, okay, cool. What do I do from here now? Let's just turn the stone back over and go find another stone, or like figure out what that means for me. And it's not to say that it was like a bad decision or a waste of time. It's just that it could have worked out really well. And I'm finding now that it's kind of not, or like it could still, but it's not my passion. So yeah, it's something that I really want everyone to sort of take that piece of advice with them. And it's like, you can never turn over too many stones. And I think that really reduces the pressure that you might have on yourself when you're trying to figure out what to do with your career.
100%. 100%. You got to, and you got to take that risk and that chance, right? You know, even when you're speaking to that, I actually did a similar thing, right? In terms of this, for the first 6 months of this year, I made a decision. It wasn't for me. And I look back, and at first my initial thoughts were sort of like, oh my God, I just spent 6 months doing something that didn't really align with me. But then it's like, I now know it doesn't align with me. So now you look at it in that aspect where it's like, if you don't know until you try, essentially, right? So like you said, speaking about the stone unturned, like you've got to turn the stone over. If you don't like it, that's cool. Put it back. That's not I'm going to go get another stone.
And I think as well, exactly, you know, when you speak to that little part where it's like you sort of look back and you go, oh, I did that, I spent 6 months and this amount of time. For me, it would be 8 months, right? Oh, what month are we in? Now 9 months. Where I've slowly, progressively over time. And we did the same thing. We both went back to the gym for face-to-face clients. And then even though like I love the connections that I've made with face-to-face, and I have some beautiful clients now that I wouldn't change for the world. But the actual setup of having face-to-face clients isn't right for me. So it's like, cool, now what do I do? Make those changes to sort of start turning over other stones in other areas. So yeah, it's like we could go, oh, we spent like 6 or 7 months and it wasn't right. Or we could go, right, cool, now I know that's definitely not the solution to what I'm looking for. So yeah, there's lessons to be had in everything. But I think that would also kind of roll on nicely to our next topic, which would be working on finding your passion. So thinking about what you love to do. For example, obviously, our passion is within the health and wellness sector, and there is many different things that we could essentially progress on within that under that umbrella. So whatever it is that you're currently doing with your career, is that something that you are passionate about? And when I say passionate, I mean you can't stop thinking about it every single day, and you have ideas around what you want to do with that, and you've got areas where you want to progress. Or are you in a place where you're not really that enthused about what you're doing? You're not really like progressive or wanting to achieve anything more than what you're currently doing within that role. So finding your passion is something that is absolutely pivotal to you making positive career moves and positive career changes for yourself.
100%. And that's really, really important, because at the end of the day, we've got that driving force to get up each and every day, right? We've got to do things that we love in terms of that. Not every day is going to be sunshine and rainbows, but at the same time, you know, it's finding something that it's worth getting up for, right? Yep. And that's not just career as a whole, but in terms of that, it's like, you know, when we're speaking in terms of career today, it's like explore, you know, really sit with yourself and sort of go, what lights me up in life? What sparks, you know, like, for example, I've had a conversation, I'm just going to speak this out there as a separate from, you know, health and wellness, but I have friends that work in specific jobs and it pays them really well, but they don't enjoy it. But they have this passion to be like, for example, like an interior designer or something like that. And I'm like,
yeah, wow.
What? You got to start, girl. Like you got to start, right? And imagine, like, the biggest thing as I always think about my life is like, I don't want to get to wherever that ends up many years down the track and go, what if? I want to be like, I did it, and holy crap, that was an experience of some
Yeah.
sort, whether it was not so good or really freaking incredible. So it's like, you got to think about those sort of things. It's like, if there's something that's sitting in the back of your head that's lingering, and it's like, this is what I'd really love to do. It's like, cool, figure out the smallest thing to start and just get started, because we have our life, we get to create it, right? And in terms of that sort of leads into our next topic of playing smart but also making moves. So within this, there's lots of different things that you can do in terms of playing smart, right? I always think about things in terms of like having somewhat of a level of safety, but also just going outside that comfort zone, right? We don't want to go full, well, I don't know, it's up to you. At the end of the day, it's your life if you want to do that. But I strongly recommend, and I'm sure Debbie feels the same, in terms of like, have those things where you don't make gradual progressions in whatever it might be. And, one of these things is like, you got to take action, right? Take bold action. And that could be like little tiny things, right? Little tiny things. So like, for example, within myself, I'll speak in terms of when I went from working for someone to working for myself. The first thing I did was like, what do I need to be a business owner? And that was straight away, I need an ABN. That was literally the first thing I did. I was like, ABN. Okay, cool. I've got the things now. I have a business. I'm a business owner. I'm doing the things. And like, it might be only like something that's quite little, but like that there was like that step where it was like, you know what? I've made that step now. I have an ABN. I'm doing the things. I'm becoming a business owner. And I had no clients. I had nothing. I don't even think I was certified at that point. Oh no, I was. I can't remember. It was a few years ago now. I was very excited to get started. But like, you got to take those actions. And I was like,
it's a good sign that you've made the right decision.
Oh, 100%. I was like visualizing. I was like, got to the point where I was like, you must go to bed because you need your sleep, because health and wellness. But I was like super excited about the things that we do in our life. And, I suppose like the first point coming under playing smart, but also making moves. Like, I was still working at the time, full time at the time. And, I just did little moves. And then gradually it came to the point where I was like, you just got to do it. You just got to do it. And I worked for I went part-time for other jobs and stuff like that. So I could get back some time to create the time. So it was really, really good. It was really good in that aspect,
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there, where it's about being smart in your decision making, or as smart as obviously you have the capacity to be. And something that my dad taught me from a really young age, which I mostly agree with, but I sort of shift it a little bit. And I've found that there's like, there's a little bit of adaptation that you can take to what he taught me. He was always very adamant that I should never quit one job before I've lined up another. And so, yes, I 100% wholeheartedly agree with that when you're someone that lives week to week. Because if you're living week to week and you quit a job and you don't have another one, you might find yourself under financial stress, which is actually going to put unnecessary pressure on you when you're trying to pursue something that you may or may not be passionate about, or maybe making moves in an area, right? So the way that I sort of feel like it can be adapted is essentially, if you do like have some financial backing and you want to go after something that you're passionate about, or you want to make that move within your career, then I would definitely say that it's important to even just have a plan, or have the idea and really flesh it out. And that would be part of taking action. So essentially create a business plan before you go and just jump away from the current place that you're in. And that's something that's really important. Like with your friends that you mentioned, like they get paid really good money and they have this other little passion that they might want to do or pursue. I think that that's really, really important. And I think the same thing quite often, where it's like, this might sound a little bit deep, but it's like, when I'm on my deathbed, do I really want to be thinking, I never did that thing that I really wanted to do? A big one for me is acting. And we've spoken about this in the past before, where I've always wanted to be an actor since I was a kid, right? And I had this experience in high school where my high school teacher told me, and for listeners that listened to Find Your Passion, you probably will remember me telling this story. But if you haven't listened to it, just a real quick sort of like summary on what happened. My drama teacher actually told me she wanted me to go to Whopper, but not for acting. she wanted me to go for costume and set design. She thought I would be better to be the one that's actually designing the sets for people to, which is actually really great. Like, that's actually pretty fucking cool. But for me, I was like, what do you mean I'm not, like, my 16-year-old brain went, well, I'm not good enough to be an actor. And that was something that triggered a deep insecurity in me at the time. And I didn't actually understand how to process that. And I didn't have people around me to help me interpret that and sort of grow from it. But I didn't even sit my tertiary entry exam for drama. I had a monologue, then I needed to go to a university and perform in front of people, and I didn't go. So that sort of, and then it just lay dormant in me for a really, really long time until I hit like 26, 27. And I actually started going to acting classes like 3 years ago. And even though I was so busy with my business in health coaching and I was working for someone else, and then I started my own business and moved away from that person, I was going to like one class every 3 to 6 months. And it was just enough for me to go, oh, that fire's still there. It's there. I still want to do it. I'm still hungry for it. And slowly, progressively over time, I've just created more and more involvement and networking within like a bit of an acting and performance space. So to the point where next week I'm actually filming, not next week, but over the next 3 weeks, I'm filming 3 short videos to display my acting kind of skills, right? So it's really cool. And like, my action was so fucking small. I went to a free acting class 3 years ago, and it's like 3 years now, but I couldn't be more fucking happy now. Like, yeah, I could go, oh, I could have done more. I could have gone to more classes. Had I have known then what I know now, I probably would have taken a massive step back from my health and fitness career and chased something in acting. But I didn't do that. I thought my health and fitness career was something that I was really passionate about at the time, or like I thought I couldn't leave that role because that was part of my identity and all these things, right? So it's all about, like, I would also ask people that when you're making moves and taking action, ask yourself, or actually, if you're not taking action, ask yourself, what type of stories are you telling yourself that's kind of narrating your decision making, right? So that just kind of like snowballed, and I went on a massive tangent from like, main point is don't quit a job before you got another one, but at least have a plan, right? So I didn't have a plan. All those years ago when I went to my first acting class, I didn't have a plan. That's essentially why I didn't go, cool, health and fitness career, coaching career, I'm going to knock back my hours so I can focus more on acting. I didn't do that then. And I also had scarcity around money. Acting doesn't pay you very well. So yeah, that's like, again, big, long-winded story around like why you should always have a plan moving forward and taking action, even if it's small, right?
That is so beautiful. I love that. I'm so excited. And I just want to say, don't forget us little people when you are like a big famous actor. I'm just going to put it out there. Like this here, mark this word right here. Today when we're actually filming it, I'm just going to put it on here, but it is Monday, the 5th of September at 9:40 a.m. Queensland time, 7:40 at WA time. This is the beginning of the next chapter for Demi's acting career. So I'm just making that mark because we're going to look back on this in many years' time and go, yeah, that's taking action.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to put that there.
Hopefully that'll make this podcast very like easy to monetize. No, podcast will be worth a lot later. No, just kidding.
Watch the progressions. No, but it's so good. And I'm so excited. Like, see, that's the coolest thing, right? We're speaking in terms of making those actions, right? And no matter how small you start, right? And that's really, really important. And, you know, leading into another tip around, you know, playing smart, but also making moves is one thing that, you know, I feel like we've probably both done is one thing I actually did was before I actually kind of knew what I wanted to do in my life. And even that still shifts and evolves as I evolve. But throughout the careers when I was working for someone else, I would honestly have so many job interviews because I was like, I need to understand how everyone's working. And I was like, I need to prepare myself. So like, for example, if job interviews are something that's holding you back because of fear, it's like, you know what? You've got to put yourself out there. Once you've done it once, you've ripped that Band-Aid off, you know what to expect next. And not that it will be the same every single time, but I honestly I was very successful in the things that I did. You know, anything that I wanted, I eventually got at some point because I was set out to get it. But that doesn't mean I got knocked back so many times. I remember significantly, this is one that I'm letting go at some point. But I have let go, but it's just a funny story to tell. But I remember going into this interview for this sales account manager role for like an alcohol rep of like the whole of Australia, right? And I was
Yeah,
like,
wow.
I've got this. And then he was like, you have everything we need, but you've had so many different jobs. And I was like, that doesn't mean anything. And he's like, yeah, but we just want to know that you're going to stay here for like next 3 to 5 years. And I was like, well, okay, interesting. But going back to that, I actually had this other job that I was with that I got into because we transitioned companies. But within that, I actually stayed there for 3 to 5 years and became the top sales rep, right? And
Yeah.
come work for us. And I'm like, sorry, I've got too many different things happening. But like, you've got to get yourself, I don't even know why I went on that tangent, but in speaking in terms of job interviews, there's always going to be people that, it's good to learn different personalities, how people speak, what they look for, depending on what the sector is that you're looking for in terms of that. And, it's just a really good way to put yourself out there. And I feel like sometimes job interviews, if you're looking to make moves in another career or whatever it might be, if that's one of those things that are kind of like, oh, that doesn't feel really good, start putting it, you just got to do it once. Just got to do it once and get into that rhythm of that. And even if they like, no, not now, you now have that experience to come back even better and even stronger.
Yeah, I agree. And something that I would also add to that is alongside job interviews, if you have an opportunity to go into like a volunteering space to get some experience in what it is you think you might want to do, absolutely do that. And it's something that's pretty, they make you do it to become a PT, where you have to go do shadow hours and all that sort of stuff, where you volunteer and you go follow other PTs around and you see what they do and gain a bit of experience and dabble in all the different areas. And so if you're not in a position where your role actually requires you to do that as a prerequisite to move into the next space, go and put yourself out there to do it. Go and volunteer, or go and ask someone that and say, hey, I'm really interested in doing, or even if you don't know, join a Facebook group. And this comes into learning things, which is another one of our main points. Go and learn things about where you want to go and what you want to do. Whether that be through volunteering, whether that be through joining Facebook groups with like-minded individuals, whether that's going and studying a course. Like in this day and age, like, for example, your friend that wants to be an interior designer, you can get interior designer courses online, so what's to say you don't like not to do that in your spare time, if it's something that you feel like you're going to enjoy. Worst case scenario, you'll do something and you go, she didn't like that. It might prevent you from turning over the stone or going all in on something and getting a year down the line and going, that's actually not as satisfying as I thought it was going to be. Because I think I've like something that I've learned as well, which is really important, is like, if we just follow people on social media, or if we just follow what we think people are doing really well or looks good from the outside, not a lot of people are actually showing the nitty-gritty and the discomfort of career pathways that they choose, all the downsides, right? All the boring admin, or all the sitting at a desk. Like, as an online coach, we actually spend a ton of time sitting in the office on the desk, right? And not a lot of people talk about that, so it's like, oh yeah, we're this beautiful online coach, like we create content, we have beautiful clients, and we do all these things, and we have the ability to travel, but a lot of it is actually just sitting at our desk on our computer, on like a coaching app, or on Google Excel spreadsheets and things like that. And so go and actually find out what the nitty-gritty is. Go and find out, this is a huge one that I wish I did earlier, was go and find out how the business structure works for the place you want to be in 2 years, right? So I wish I did something along the lines of going and understanding fully how a fitness business operates as a multi-6-figure revenue business, right? So not just like, cool, how do I operate my own business and have my own clients and, pay my own taxes and stuff. It's like, okay, let's actually look at how people structure a business and make X amount of money that I want to make, or progress to the point where I want to progress. Because a big determining factor as to whether you're going to go down that line or whether it's worth making that move for you is, are you prepared to do those things? Because lots of people, like for myself included, was like, cool, I really want to have my own business. I want to earn 6 figures, all this stuff. But then realized that I was going to have to go and do some of those things. And I was like, oh shit, people don't just be online coaches and just make incredible money without having to go and do all this other stuff. You know, the people that you see that are highly successful on social media, et cetera, like what have they done? A really good example as well is like a business model like F45, right? It was an incredible business model, obviously not right now, but in its peak, it was an incredible business model. And if you understood the actual franchisee business model, that's something that you could actually model after and do yourself, right? And if you're passionate about it, that could be moves that you could make, but you wouldn't necessarily know to make them unless you understood how things work, right? So understand how the industry works, understand how business models work, and then you can start to model after those things.
Super important point. That is super important point. Essentially, like when we work with whatever it is, whether it's businesses, whether we're immersed in that, or whether it's with mentors or whatever it is that we're doing, or like, you know, for example, if you're in a career and there's hierarchy in terms of that, you know, shadow them, learn from them. Essentially, when we're doing that sort of stuff, we're immersing into something that's beyond who we are right now. That's essentially like, there's a saying that it's like collapsing time, essentially. It's like spending less time trying to do all the fiddly things, but you're actually learning the things to excel even further. And that's something that definitely honestly helps so much. Like, honestly, immerse yourself into things, obviously within limits, but that doing that is something is so important for you to be able to understand what is good for you and what is not so great for you too. You know, it's like, you got to think about, like, you got to really want to do the work, even on the days that you're like, doesn't feel so great, but you've got to really want it. Like, you got to want it. Like, so we speak in terms of like, you know, potentially doing the courses or whatever it might be, but it's like, what is your why? You know, that comes back to the finding your passion thing, but it's like, what is your why? Like, you know, is it, you know, for myself, it's like helping others. It's like, you know, helping people feel amazing. You know, it's like, that is my, like, part of my why. And it's like, those sort of things, like, what is your why? What do you want out of this? What life do you want to create from yourself? And how could this get you there? And always thinking about, like, I suppose those sort of things. Because if it's like, yeah, you know what, that's not for me, well, then maybe, you know, you don't have to do it. At the end of the day, you get to do those things. But I suppose leading into our next point is, which sort of ties in with learning things, is like putting yourself out there in terms of those things. And like, that can look different in everything, you know, sort of like we just sort of discussed before about immersing yourself into free things, or, you know, courses, or, you know, mentoring, or, you know, for example, like coaching, like experiencing what it's like to work under a coach, all those sort of things. Put yourself out there. But also in terms of this, tying into that, it's like, put yourself out there. So like, for example, like when I've worked for someone else, it was like, you know, this is what I can do. This is what I can do. Let's utilize my talents. And also, I'm open to learning. It's like, people don't know, people can't read your minds. So it's like, I remember every career I've ever been in, I was always speaking to the managers, always speaking to that. But it's like, you know, I'm keen to learn. I'm keen to excel, keen to take myself to the next level. And, you know, that's just an example of, it's like, you're putting yourself out there, where it's like, you're opening up that pathway, essentially, where it's like, okay, cool, they've got it in their head that you want to learn more. So it's like, now you got to be open and willing to do that sort of work. But it's like, put yourself out there, because people won't know that you want to go further unless you do it, right? Unless you take that action too.
Yeah, I agree. Something that would, like, will hopefully resonate with many people that might be listening to this, that are in a job role working for a business or a company, and they want to move up within that company, not just specifically speaking to people that might want to go out and start their own business. But if you want to move forward and you want to move up and progress in your role, you have to make it known that that's what you want to do. And you also, like, if that's the case, this is going to sound super blunt, be fucking good at what you do, right? Like, if you want to move up and you want to progress, you got one job, be good at it, right? Put your effort in, be good at it, and don't expect that you're going to move up just as a natural progression without having to put the work in. And someone that I credit for this in a massive way is actually my partner, Aaron. And he has had some phenomenal growth in his career over the last 3 years. I attribute it to because he met me. But when we met, I was talking about leaving FIFO to go and study nutrition and do all those things. And he said to me, you know, that's actually inspired me to now go and do his open class and all these other things. He's a crane operator, but he's now since then been able to move up into the heaviest cranes. And he's like the youngest guy for his company in operating cranes as heavy as what he's operating. And over the next couple of months, they're going to move him up again and again and again. And so it's just been like an amazing progression. But one thing that he says to me, and this is where I got it from, he's like, you've got one job, just be fucking good at it. Like, as well, for him, it's like a safety thing where if he's not good at his job, he could kill someone. But he's like, you just have to be good at your job. Like, and he loves it. Like, he actually loves, he's fascinated with weights. He loves lifting things. And it's like really, really cool to see that he's able to put his, and it's like, he's never going to want to start his own business or move away. He's always going to want to be a crane operator, but he's like, why not be really good at it? You know, like, it opens up opportunities, and it's opened up so many opportunities for him. And he can probably work, like, for example, in 2 years' time, we're going to hopefully be able to do a lap around Australia. He will be able to go and he'll be able to go and contract to like ad hoc work anywhere in Australia with the type of tickets that he's got. So that's a really classic example for someone that might be in a career role or want to move up in your career. But he also makes it known, because he's really good at his job. He puts himself in front of the supervisors and he puts himself in front of his managers and goes, what can I do now? What can I do next? What more can I do? And he's the one that gets a lot of work. Like, he gets a lot of the work. He earns good money for it. He gets rewarded. He gets whatever time off he wants when he asks for it, because he always works overtime and he puts the hours in and he's good at what he does. So yeah, without blowing smoke up my partner's ass, because he won't listen to this, and probably a good thing he doesn't, because he'll get a super big head. But
the one episode he listened to.
yeah, it's probably the one episode he might listen to. I'll just cut it into Instagram short and then post it into the stories. Just kidding. No, I won't do that. Yeah, so that's an example for anyone that's like, you know, career-based, working for other companies and wants to move up in the ranks, and how to make those moves and make those changes within your career. It really does come down to you putting yourself out there. How much effort you put in is going to dictate potentially the reward that you might get back and the satisfaction that you have within your role.
That is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful example in that aspect. And go, Aaron, well done. It's so awesome. Yeah. But in terms of that, you know, when you are putting yourself out there, I just want to think about this point, and kind of this stems back, which I'm sure you probably had this experience too. When you put yourself out there, people aren't going to like it. There's going to be people that talk about you, or people are like, oh, like I used to get some interesting things said, and you know, I've never done anything malicious. I can wholeheartedly hold that against my heart. Everything's always come from a place of love 100%. And wanting to be better. But there will always be people that will try and tear you down. So it's like that point when you are, you know, get really good at your craft, get really good at that, but also back yourself, right? You know, just back yourself, because there will be people that will be like, you know, no matter what career that you're in, or whether you become a business owner or whatever it is that you decide to do, there will always be people that will try and bring you down. You just got to let it, as much as it's going to hurt sometimes, especially as we learn, you just got to let it go, because at the end of the day, you know, as long as we're doing things out of a place of love and wanting to progress and become a better person than we were yesterday, and not maliciously or actively trying to hurt anyone else, then, you know, that's on them, you know, that's on them. Yeah. You know, ultimately in the day, there's only so much you can do in that aspect, but yeah, you just got to back yourself. Like, you just have to back yourself. Yeah. You just got to do it.
And stay in your lane. Like, don't worry about what other people are doing. Really just focus on yourself. Focus on how you can progress, how you can be better. Even if you go for a role and someone else gets the job over you, you know, that's also a learning curve for you. Again, stay in your lane. You don't know what the other person's doing. You don't know sort of what thoughts, feelings, and what they've done to get there. So exactly the same where you say, like, obviously, if you're not doing anything malicious, don't go sabotage someone else's job interview so that you can get the job. Like, that's definitely a no-no. But yeah, as long as you're, you know, staying in your lane, you've got good intentions. It's Australia, man, that tall poppy syndrome, where people start to like rise above and grow and progress and do all the things. And, you know, so many people, because they're unhappy with where they're at, they'll shoot you down. Yeah. Right. I've had so many times. And I like to see that now the people that I surround myself with are people that would actually help build me up when I'm doing really well. And that's another really important point, is like, what does your environment look like? When I spoke earlier about, you know, what are the thoughts, feelings, and narratives that you're telling yourself about this career move, or about this job change, or about this, you know, progression in your career? What are the thoughts, feelings, and are they limitations to you? Are they actual limitations, or are they just narrative limitations or perceived limitations? And then also, what is your environment? What is your environment like? What environment are you surrounding yourself with, and is it facilitating your growth? Because that's a huge thing. You might be potentially limited in what you can actually, well, you're never limited by your environment, but you're heavily influenced by it, and that potentially might prevent you from taking opportunities or stepping into a space that you're more passionate about.
100%. And that's really, really important, because we honestly absorb a lot of things, and sometimes we don't actually realize we're absorbing, but it sits in our subconscious mind, and that can actually hold us back in terms of those sort of things. And that's like not even just in terms of the people that you're around, but also the things that you consume on social media, you know, those sort of things, stuff like that, you know, very conscious in terms of that, for you to be able to make those next steps, essentially, or make that progressions. Because, you know, if you constantly have someone saying, no, you can't do this, like you're never going to make it, or like, you know, that's for such and such sort of people, of course that's going to sit there and that's reiterated. It's like, be around the people that are the dreamers, the doers, the empowerers, that, you know, that want to see you grow. Like, for example, like, you know, even use an example here, Demi and I chat, you know, regularly outside of this, but, you know, we have dreams and passions of what we want to do in our lives. And, you know, you can either be passionate and help and be that supportive person where it's like, cool, let's empower each other to become the best person that we can. Or there are people out there that, unfortunately, whilst they're stuck in their narrative and what they have going on, they project that onto you. So it's like being conscious and building that awareness where it's like, I am selective with the things that I absorb, and I'm very conscious of that, because I know the life, or I'm deciding, or I'm discovering the life that I want to create. Choose wisely. Choose wisely. And yeah,
100%. I agree. Like, that is just so important. Some of the really like pivotal things that I would encourage people to look out for in their environment is, say, for example, a huge one was for me, like an example is when I stepped into the fitness industry and trying to post something like a selfie of myself or a workout on social media. I was always really nervous to do that sort of stuff. And some of the dialogue that I got back from the people around me was like, taking little like piss takes and little digs and little like, oh yeah, it doesn't exist, it doesn't count if you don't take a photo of it, or like, you know, mirror selfie in the gym and all that sort of stuff. You know, these are things that subconsciously actually bring you down and prevent you, or, you know, maybe might cause you to go back into your own energy and not actually put yourself out there. So again, like little things like people commenting on, you know, what you're doing in sort of a piss take way or a negative way. You know, if you're posting up on social media some of the things that you might be doing in a space that, you know, you're passionate about, or something that you're trying that's new, if there's anyone that's commenting or posting or, you know, giving you feedback or laughing at you for what you're doing, one, it's an insecurity in them, so it's not on you, but that's probably an environment that you should move away from. And I had this a lot in contest prep, and I've recently spoken to a few of my friends about what they were experiencing whilst I was going through contest prep, and it genuinely came from a lack of understanding of what I was doing. So one, something that I'm doing is triggering them, but it's also them a lack of understanding as to why I'm doing it. But that, again, I remember going through that phase when I was contest prepping, and I removed myself from those environments, right? It made me sad to do it. And fortunately for me, it didn't end any of my friendships, but it was definitely something where my environment was something that was making me feel like I didn't actually want to do the thing that I wanted to follow. So that would be something that, look out for those people. They may not be doing it even maliciously, but if you're finding that someone's commenting or making a joke about something that you're doing, one thing as well, going back to the acting example, is I remember not telling anyone for years that I even wanted to be an actor, because I was so scared about what people would say, or like that they would laugh at me or something like that. So in the years that I've been doing it and telling more people about it, I've been getting heaps of great feedback. But if I had someone around me that was like, why the hell would you want to do that? That's weird. I'd be like, cool. You're not someone that I need to share my experiences and my goals and my dreams with. Simple. I share them with Kirsty. She's very supportive. So yeah, environment, super important.
Yeah, it is so true. You got to find your people, and that takes learnings and stuff like that too. And, touching on that, how you just said the point around, it's like, I'm not, potentially if you're receiving that response, it's like, maybe I'm not going to share that with you. It's okay for people as well. Like, sometimes like family or, friends or whatever, they might not truly understand what you're doing. Like you were touching on that point before, where it's like, they didn't actually understand what you're doing in the contest prep. And it's like, and that's okay too. But then sort of like, that's creating that boundary within yourself. It's like, you know what, I maybe don't get that awesome response that, or that empowering response that I do need, that supportive, collaborative response or whatever it might be from that person. I might reserve some of those things just for myself, but I can still maintain that friendship in it or relationship in a different way. So it's like, that's honestly, we could go down rabbit holes in terms of this sort of stuff, because there's multi-layers in terms of all these sort of things, but
so many layers.
So many layers. But I suppose, speaking in terms of this episode today, we're really excited to sort of bring this to you, because, sometimes it's really challenging to be able to make those moves in any sort of career, and whatever it is that you decide to do in your life. And I suppose as a summary in, what we'd love for you to take away from today, and you're more than welcome to reach out with questions too, is, one, find your passion, right? Discover it, try things out, just have a go. And, other thing is like, make a plan, right? Make some time, create some space where it's like, play smart, right? Play smart, where it's like, you know what, I've got a little, I don't know what it's going to look like, but I know where I want to go, and I'm just going to make the first step, right? The first step is all you got to do. That is it.
Yeah. 100%. You can't, like, again, another recent lesson that I've learned is you cannot make clear decisions if you don't create space for yourself. So if you're someone that knows that they want to make some changes, but you're constantly hustling, you're always busy, you're running to this appointment, you're working 6 days a week, or you're in hustle mode already, you need to stop, you need to pull back, and you need to create some space for yourself. Go and take yourself to dinner or to a cafe, or go for an overnight stay somewhere. Create some space where you can truly slow down and have a think about what these things might look like for you and what's going to make you happy. Because otherwise, if you don't, you're making decisions from a clouded place, and you're not actually able to access all the parts of yourself that you need to consider. And that is one way that you're going to end up 6 months down the line, or even a year down the line, and you go, shit, maybe I didn't make the decision in full how I wanted. Or you might make a decision and then thinking it's going to lead you to X result or X reward, and you get later on down the line, you're like, why am I not in that place that I want to be in? It's because you're not creating space for yourself. So huge one, create space for yourself regularly. So yeah, they are huge things. I had a point that's just slipped off my mind as I was talking. But yeah, I'll handball it back to you till that thought comes back to me, Kirsty.
No, that's okay. Well, I suppose in terms of that as well, summarizing the rest of what we'd love for you to take away from today as well, was like, immerse yourself into things and try things out and learn new things, in terms of that, whatever it is that you're doing. If you want to progress in the career that you're doing, or whether you want to go into a different direction, start exploring. What does that sort of look like? Start to paint a picture, start to visualize what your life would look like in that aspect. And last point is put yourself out there, right? Put yourself out there, let people know that you're ready, or make that chance to make that next step. And we hope that you got some valuable things out of this episode today. We're really excited to bring this to you. And if there's anything that's resonated or anything that's helped you take that next step, let us know in a DM. Honestly, we'd love to know.
Yeah, absolutely. That thought just came back to me. So main point was, if you do feel like you just need some people in your corner to kind of like give you a little bit of a clap, or like, some encouragement in the right direction, you ever need people to kind of reach out to and chat to, you're always more than welcome to reach out to myself and Kirsty. We'll be your hype girls in the corner for you to kind of like flesh out thoughts to, if you feel like you may not have anyone around you that might understand dreams are scary. Like, fear is going to be part of the equation no matter what. And voicing your dreams is even more scary. So if you feel like you need a safe space to do that in, then, our DMs are always open through Instagram and stuff like that. So just like jump in, let us know if you've got some dreams that you're thinking about and you want to follow some stuff. And just, we can be soundboards, right? Because sometimes you're not able to figure it out until you can verbalize it or have an interaction with someone about those things. And then lastly would be the four main things that I think are super important when it comes to any career decision or any like kind of making changes, or understanding how to essentially create the change or go through the process, is, we discussed it before, passion, purpose, progression, and income. So they're the 4 main pillars I think that we need to make sure we really consider. Passion, making sure you're passionate about what it is that you're going to do. Purpose, make sure that it gives you purpose and you find it rewarding too, or it helps other people get, find purpose or whatever. Progression, really important. There's room for progression. That it's a key, like Jordan Peterson talks about it all the time, how progression is the key to happiness, or, the key to like long-term or longevity, where if we're not progressing, we can typically find ourselves more inclined to experience things like anxiety and depression. So progression in your career is super important. And then income, and we put that one last just because income is important, but it's also subjective to the individual. So what might be, substantial income for me might be different. Substantial income, like Kirsty's substantial income might be different to mine, but as long as we're passionate about what we're doing, we have purpose, and we're also progressing, that income side of things, it'll either follow as a natural byproduct if you're good at what you do, or you have to make sure that income is actually going to be sustainable for you, right?
100%. They are beautiful summaries for our episode in terms of that. So looking at those key points in terms of what it is that you do, and hopefully you'll be able to find what it is that you'd like to do in terms of that aspect as well. So thank you so much for listening into Creating Connection in Health and Wellness with both myself and also the beautiful Demi. Now, if you've liked this episode or are loving our podcast, please leave us a review, take a screenshot of this episode, or share it to your socials and tag us. We'll leave our Instagram handles in the description below. Every reshare counts, and we honestly deeply appreciate it so much because it helps us spread our message to the world as well. But we hope you have a beautiful day wherever you're listening into this, and sending you love.
Thank you, beautiful people. Ciao.